You see that QR code right on the screen there. If you wanted to just take a minute and scan that, if you can, this will take you to a form that lets us keep in touch with you. So in case we have upcoming events we want to share, or you're interested in connecting with us about our open opportunities, this will help us to do that. So if you wouldn't mind just taking a quick second, and we'll also show it at the end too. So in case you miss it, no worries. Okay, great. So maybe we'll move on to the next slide. Okay, so again, really excited to talk to you all about Wayfair today. I'll give sort of an overview of the business, and then I'm also really happy to have two Clark Atlanta alumni with us today who work at Wayfair, and they're going to spend some time talking about their career path that led them to Wayfair, their experiences as a student because they, were alums of Clark Atlanta, and also advice that they have for you. So I promise I'll get through the business stuff fairly quickly and try and make it as exciting as I can, and then we'll turn it over for some great conversation and also time for any questions that you might have. Okay. So Wayfair is a platform focused on the over $800 billion home goods market. So I can see some of you on screen, like, are you familiar with Wayfair? Has anyone purchased anything from Wayfair? You've seen our commercials. Yeah, so some of you. So we have over 31 million active customers, over 16,000 suppliers, over 16,000 employees, and those employees are spread out between our two corporate headquarters in Boston, Massachusetts, and also Munich, Germany. But in addition, we have some tech centers, we have customer service representatives all over. So definitely a global company with lots of exciting opportunity. And we also have over 3,000 engineers who build a lot of our technology and keep it running. So the idea of buying furniture through a website was really revolutionary back when we launched in 2011, and it's still pretty new and pretty revolutionary. And because the market is so large, it's a really exciting time to join. There's a lot of room for us to grow. And not only are we an e-commerce company, but we're also a technology company. And so focusing on that stat with those engineers right now, we actually build a lot of our technology in-house, which also makes us really unique. Great. So next slide, please. So a little bit about our market and what that looks like, just to give you some perspective. So shopping for the home is a little bit different, particularly if you're shopping on the Wayfair site. So if you're going to a site like Amazon, typically you know what you're looking for. And yes, they show some recommendations, but you're going there really to make a specific purchase. So what's unique about Wayfair is that we realize that shopping for the home is different and that customers want to be inspired. So the way that we build our site, the way that customers are able to use our site is really to browse and be able to identify items that inspire them, that fit who they are, that really can help them make their home unique. So Wayfair has realized this and is really trying to lean in to speak to the customer and to that emotional connection. Next slide. So as I mentioned, the home goods market is growing like crazy. So in 2030, it's estimated to be an over $1 trillion market. In 2020, it was over $840 billion, and Wayfair had 14 billion of that market share. So with that much growth anticipated in the next 9 years or so, 8 years, this is why it's such an exciting time to join and so much opportunity. So a little bit about who we are as a brand. So obviously Wayfair is sort of the umbrella brand that you're probably familiar with if you've heard of us, if you've seen our commercials, but we also have 4 brands underneath, and there's a description on the slide of each brand and what that kind of looks like, but they're really meant to curate to different segments of the market, different aesthetics, different price points, so that Wayfair really can speak to the mass market. So I think, again, that's really what makes us unique. You can go to our site and find whether you're looking for something really modern, whether you're looking for something a little bit more simple and sophisticated. If you're looking for something with a low price point, you can really do that. You can find anything on our site. As I mentioned earlier, we really have built our site and our shopping experience so that it enables browsing for our customers. So our 31 million plus customers are using our site regularly. They're coming back to Wayfair. The average customer visits the site 9 times and browses 29 products before they actually make a purchase. And I can speak for myself, and I know that that's probably the case. I probably even view more products than that when I'm on the site. But I think one of the things that really helps with the shopping experience is the importance that we place on customer reviews. So there's over 47 million reviews on the site. There's a lot of photos of customers with the item in their space to really help you envision that product and make the decision that inspires you to buy that. And just another snapshot of how our loyal customer base is growing. You can see in 5 years, the amount of customers who had over 3 orders has just about doubled. So customers are coming back, they're having a good experience on the site and really fueling our growth. Okay. So going into how we win. So Wayfair has decided to double down on 5 areas. Christina, if you wanted to just shift to the next slide, please. Thank you. So we've doubled down in 5 areas: the shopping experience, merchandising, marketing, operations, and supplier services. And each of these areas is really powered by those engineers that I've referred to in a few different places. And really the ability to power our own technology, which helps support our financial operations, some of our talent operations, again, really unique in the e-commerce space. And we believe by focusing on these areas, this is really how we're going to win and how we will keep our customers and bring in new ones as well. So for those of you who are familiar with Wayfair, you might have seen some of our commercials. I know the Kelly Clarkson commercials have been on quite a bit and actually highlighting our customer reviews in each one of them. So we have over 103 of our own curated house brands, and they account for 77% of our US revenue. And again, back to those customer reviews with all of the photos and really allowing the customer to jump into that product and see if it's right for them. We also produce most of our own imagery and manage the AI curation on the site. So again, back to our engineers really powering the experience, but really unique being able to have all of these house brands and be able to showcase them in one place. So data is really important at Wayfair. We are very data driven. Even where I work on the campus recruiting team, we're always looking at data and ROI, and super important to us. But when it comes to the site, we have quite a bit of interactions from our customers. So over 4 billion app and site visits in 2020, and we sent over 46 billion messages to our customers, and we're able to track the ROI and the payback on all of the marketing that we do. And again, that's through our own technology that we've been able to create, but we also work really closely with our advertising partners, so making us really unique. And we wouldn't win, of course, without our extremely high level of commitment to customer service. So we have a team of over 4,000 spread out across the globe, really focusing on supporting our customers. And they also have expertise in a number of different areas, so they can really help our customers in specific areas with specific products, suppliers, to make the whole process more pleasant and also more efficient. These are just some of the reviews that we've received for customers highlighting our really high level of service. And we've also been recognized in a few areas. You can see down below those awards that we've received. So financial results, we would be remiss if we didn't hop on a slide about our results, especially as we're talking to all of you as business students. So this just gives you a visual of how we're driving robust growth at scale. And so in 2020, our revenue was over 14 billion, and you can really see that sort of sharp increase since the Wayfair brand was launched in 2011. The dark purple is the US net revenue, and the light purple is the international net revenue. And as I mentioned earlier, we do have an office in Munich and are expanding quite a bit in Europe in that space with customers. Okay. So lastly, but probably most important, because Wayfair is as good as our people are, and we place a lot of importance on. I've talked a lot about customers and helping them to find their home, but Wayfair really wants employees to come to Wayfair and be able to find their home at Wayfair. We actually have over 16 employee resource groups at Wayfair. So they're really great opportunities to become involved in Wayfair, and especially at such a large company, really to build connections outside of your team. So they create safe and inclusive spaces for community building, networking, and professional development. And I've worked with some of our ERGs in the recruiting space, but I know a lot of them are involved in community service work, partnerships out in with other organizations out in the community. So just really great opportunities for mentorship, for building connections, and for feeling like you're part of the Wayfair team. They're employee created and employee led as well. So that's really important to note. And these are just some other opportunities when employees come to Wayfair to feel engaged and to feel connected and part of the community. So each of our teams has an allowance for a monthly pod outing. And so we've been able to even leverage that really well in the virtual world and have some trivia nights and things like that. So that's been really nice. I think working virtually, we've all felt very connected as a team. And you can see some other opportunities for service in the community. We work really closely with organizations focused on hiring veterans. There's opportunity to attend Boston sports events, and we're an amazing sports city. And then down there in the left-hand corner, I cannot go without mentioning our incredible office space and how it really is built focusing on collaboration. So those kitchen areas, those areas where you're able to interact with people from other teams and just get to know new people. And I think for most people coming into Wayfair, their favorite part is probably the free snack wall. And always, every time you go in, wondering what's going to be in there this time. So, that's just a nice little perk that we have too. And then I also wanted to highlight our DEI initiatives. And after this call, if you want to learn more as well, we do have a diversity, equity, and inclusion page. We have a DEI analytics team. And so we have a lot of numbers around our DEI initiatives at Wayfair and our success around that, and also some of our opportunities. So if you wanted to visit the Wayfair site, you can get some more information on that. But in 2020, we launched the Change Starts at Home discussion series. And so initially it provided a forum for real discussions around the murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and Ahmaud Arbery. But it's really grown to be more than that and to focus on a lot of different topics affecting our Wayfair employees. And they've been really well engaged, which is wonderful. And I think really speaks very highly to our community and who we are. But even in this snapshot right here, it's made of executives, co-founders, leaders in the company, but also employees across Wayfair, and something that we're going to continue to do in the future. And just highlighting some of the recognition that we've received around being an inclusive employer and employer of choice. These are all some of our recent awards: Top Places to Work, Best Employers for Diversity. Wayfair really does place an importance in supporting its employees, making them feel like they're at home, and that we're a very inclusive place to be. So now that I've given you a full snapshot of Wayfair and what the company looks like and who we are, I'm going to turn it over to our speakers. And first, let's turn it over to CJ Mitchell. CJ, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yes, absolutely. Good afternoon, everybody. CJ Mitchell. Some of you may know me as Clarence. Clark Atlanta MBA alum, graduated in 2011. So it's been almost 11 years for me from the MBA program, and have been with Wayfair going up on 2 years. And if you've noticed the date, it's a very odd date because I got a cool story about my first week at Wayfair. So my first start date at Wayfair was March 2nd, 2020, right? go up to Boston. I'm in the process of like, hey, I'm going to move to Boston. I'm looking for apartments and stuff like that. And my first week, I'm there. I'm specifically just doing onboarding stuff, learning about the company, 401k, signing up for benefits, stuff like that, right? My following week, Monday and Tuesday, I'm meeting my teams. I'm learning all of the faces who I'm going to be interacting with, working with every day. And on that Tuesday, I was told, hey, maybe you should go home and make sure you take your laptop with you because we're thinking we're going to go remote due to this whole coronavirus thing. I remember this closely because my son's birthday is March 11th, which was that Wednesday. So I'm like, great. I decided to just hop a flight home. Hey, since we're going to be working remote, I hop a flight back to Atlanta. And yeah, never returned. And that's where we've been for the last 2 years. And I've been Wayfair. It'll be 2 years again in the upcoming 2 to 3 weeks. So I was scheduled to be in Boston, but I haven't yet actually been in Boston. I've actually been right down the street from you guys. If you are in Atlanta as well, in Atlanta. But yes, this is and I am also a senior product leader specifically at Wayfair in the product management space, working in supply chain and logistics. So what I specifically do is me and my teams, we build all of the tools. My team I just left actually. I started a new team yesterday or this week. But the team I just left, I was responsible specifically for building all of the tools, responsible for transporting all of the containers, the goods from the manufacturing warehouse to the actual fulfillment center, to which when you go on wayfair.com and you purchase your furniture, all of the goods actually leave the warehouse from. So I was responsible for building the tools for our partners that enabled them to move their furniture from one place to the next. Next slide, if you can, please. Or is it on me? Do I have control of this?
Oh, Christina can do that for you.
Yeah. I was saying to get the next slide for me. Great. Yeah, so this is just what data life for me is like as a product manager. Spend a lot of time in meetings, a lot of time doing research and documentation, a lot of time doing what's called backlog prioritization, grooming, daily scrums, calendar adjustments, and just communications in general. So if you don't know what any of those things, that's a lot of verbiage and stuff I just threw out at you, but I can give you a brief rundown about what just product is in general. So for those of you that aren't familiar with product, I am a product advocate, an evangelist, if you'd call it. I would highly recommend you learning more about the space if you haven't already. In essence, what a product manager does is we are the business decision side of all of technology enabled by our company. Almost every single company in the world now has product managers because almost every single company in the world has some technology that they're responsible for. So things such as websites to mobile applications to back-end tools, et cetera. I can keep going. Most likely if a company has their own individual software that they're responsible for, a website, a mobile app, pages, things of that nature, then most likely they have software engineers who are partnered with product managers. And product managers come in all shapes and sizes. You have some product managers that are more front-end facing, for example, that work on the things that you and I touch and tap on when we're working on Instagram or Facebook or Wayfair, if you will. The things that you actually see, those are like more front-end based product managers, and you have more back-end based product managers, the people who work on things such as like the data, the databases, the algorithms, the tools that enable the front-end tools. And I can keep going on and on, but product managers come in all shapes and sizes. They come in marketing, they come in supply chain, they come in finance, they come in straight up and down product, they come in data. So if you're interested in that, I would, make sure I share some of my information, as well as anybody want to get in contact. You just want to learn more about what a product manager does. That's pretty much it. We are the business side of the technical tool. In essence, we're our own little, the easiest way I like to explain it, we're our own little Steve Jobs of a tool or a piece of product that we particularly own. So we determine the order in which the features are upgraded, the bugs and stuff that's happening on the product, and the order for which they're tackled, any changes or improvements that needs to be done that will help improve the business overall. We're responsible for that, and we do that through a variety of these things that you see on the screen here. Daily scrums, grooming. Grooming is when you have a whole list of things that you want to do, but you have to determine what's the order in which you do them. Same thing with prioritization. Hey, I have 21 things that I want to do, but I only can do 5 this month. Why are we doing these 5? And justification. And everything else is just the cross-functional meetings and discussions and research around how to actually decide what to build next and move forward. But that's pretty much my day as a product manager. I guess I'm not sure how we're exactly doing it, but I guess I'll pause there and see if you have any questions or thoughts or concerns in general for people that might have some.
CJ,
feedback.
going back to your experiences as an undergrad and a graduate student, is there anything that stands out for you in terms of, what you think students should be thinking about? Anything that you wish you did as you were getting prepared for your career? Any advice around those?
Oh, absolutely. I definitely, as an undergraduate, I think the thing I would have wished I would have taken a lot more seriously is how hard I would have went after internships, and how hard while I was at those internships would I have been forward thinking as far as what the job market is going to look like when I graduate. I had a lot of internships in undergrad and stuff like that, but they were just kind of willy-nilly. I was just looking at companies and going like, ooh, Google, great, I'll go work for them. Ooh, Enterprise Rent-A-Car, great. But it really wasn't a direction. It was just like, hey, this is just cool internships. For me, I think if I would have honed in on, for example, the knowledge that I just imparted, which is the hyper growth and the roles that is product managers, and the fact that product managers was like the fastest growing job title in the country. And this is back in the mid 2000s for me when I was particularly graduating, looking for opportunities. I definitely wish I would have been more forward thinking then and had been more headstrong, because I could have had opportunities that for companies that I could have jumped on that could have definitely revolutionized and changed my life. Opportunities that, companies such as, Snapchat and Facebook and Wayfair and stuff like that, that I could have been at 4 and 5 and 6 years earlier had I started my career trajectory 4 and 5 and 6 years earlier. And especially considering that the way the job marketplace is moving, this only growing for higher and higher demand for product managers, software engineers, UX research people. Everything is moving more tech focused and more tech driven. So I wish I had been more forward thinking and thinking, instead of, hey, I go to school for business and I majoring in finance, that means I have to go do a finance job. I wish I would have been more forward thinking and going like, what does the job market say? Skip what I majored in, right? I may have majored in finance, but in the process of me majoring in finance, I may have gained some skill sets that would enable me to be great at consulting, great at product management, great at UX research, right? Great at these things, these other job titles that are fast growing, that enables and high paying, that would be far more advantageous to me. So I wish I would have, had a little bit more laser focus on as far as what the future of the job market will be by the time I'm 26, 27, 30, 37, et cetera.
That's great advice. And since coming to Wayfair, beyond the work that you do in the day-to-day, can you talk a little bit more about what your experience has been like working for Wayfair? I know it's been virtual really since you started, but what are some of the things that stand out to you? What has your experience been like so far?
I can tell you it's not even close. The easiest thing that stood out for me from day one, which because I had a few opportunities I could have took, but I definitely decided on Wayfair's first, was how awesome the diversity is at the company. And I mean that through and through, meaning when I came into Wayfair when I first interviewed, being in the technology space, overwhelmingly before I interviewed at Wayfair, everywhere I went, most of the people that would be my counterparts that I would be working with would be almost always men. All of the engineers would be men. All of the product managers would be men. All of the UX people would be men. And that was the first thing that kind of stood out with me for Wayfair, is that it was the exact opposite. I've been at Wayfair for 2 years. I've had 4 different engineering manager counterparts that I directly worked with, or 4 that were all women. And not only just women, but Black women, international women, older women, younger women, women who completely switched careers. I literally worked as a counterpart with a woman that started and got her career as a nurse, and that was now an engineering manager at Wayfair. That was just blown away. Same thing with product lead. My initial boss and my boss's boss when I first joined were women. And that's across ages, the demographics across ages, the demographics across races, different demographics across just all types of beliefs. It's not even close. And I can tell you firsthand, I literally went and interviewed for all 5 of the top FANG companies. That's Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, and Google. Interviewed for all of them, got offers from several of them. I can tell you right now firsthand, one of them, I was there. I met 27 people that I was going to work with at their headquarters, 100% of those 27 people were men. 100%. So like one thing I can say about Wayfair, overwhelmingly, that's not here. That does not exist here. The diversity, I remember the last time I was in the office, I just looked around and I was just like, wow, we literally have 9 people in a room. 5 of them are from the United States, 4 of them are international. 5 of them are women, 4 of them are men. 5 of them are over the age of 40, 4 of them are not. I can keep going. And I was just like, if this isn't the most beautiful in definition of diversity, then I literally do not know what is. So that's the best thing that I've been able to say about working at Wayfair, because you truly get diverse ideas in every single room, every single time. And it's awesome. It's an awesome feeling.
Yeah, I would agree. I think we're just encouraged to share our thoughts and opinions no matter what level you are at Wayfair, and it's very collaborative. We respect each other's opinions and expertise, and I would echo that as well, CJ.
Yeah, and I'll throw in one more sentiment as well. It's the friendliness and amicability of senior leadership is otherworldly. Like, I kid you not, when I first came here, I met the founder of the company, took a picture of him and everything. He's literally like, he's like my avatar picture right now at the company and everything, right? And I still meet with him to this day, like on bi-weekly, bi-monthly meetings with the founder of the company, right? And then same exact thing, I got an opportunity to speak at like a diversity listening session a few months back, and the CTO of the company reached out to me personally and was like, hey, you seem like a very interesting guy. And I'm now on his calendar bi-weekly, bi-monthly. And these are like literally the senior leadership of the entire company. And they're talking to me and I'm just like, never experienced that. I worked for companies before and I could never get on the phone with Michael Dell. That was just never going to happen. But not at Wayfair, it's different. So that's another huge thing, that just how open and honest and available senior leadership is.
Yeah, and I know our co-founders sit right on the floor in Boston with everyone else, obviously pre-COVID, but we're working right out with everyone, which I think is so unique.
Absolutely.
CJ, I know we're going to come back and do some open Q&A, but any last words of advice you wanted to add?
Yeah, look into product management, man. Hit me up if you're interested. I mean, Dr. Patton will tell you I will respond. So if you got any questions, just let me know.
And I did pop CJ's email into the chat there. So if you want to grab it and reach out to him, I encourage you to do that. Thanks so much.
Awesome.
All right. With that, I will introduce our next guest. So Christina, if you wanted to move over to our next slide. So welcome to Leontine, who's our Global Head of Learning and Development, and also Clark Atlanta alum for both undergrad and her MBA. So very excited to kick it off. And Leontine, if you wanted to introduce yourself.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. It's kind of funny. So I was originally going to go before CJ, and I was like, he's younger. He's been, a bit more connected. He's been at Wayfair longer. I should probably have him go first. And now I'm like, dang, I should have gone first, because he said so many really wonderful things about his experience at Wayfair that I'm starting to kind of realize for myself. So can everybody hear and see me okay? Perfect. So I'm Leontine Sykes. I was Leontine Green when I was at Clark. And yes, I am a 2-time alumna. The crazy thing is, when CJ was talking about his time at Clark, I was like, So I graduated undergrad in 94, and I have a 26-year-old son. So I was like, some of these people were probably not even born when I graduated. So my experience may be a bit dated, to say the least. And then I graduated from the business school in 99. I absolutely loved my time at Clark. I was a mass media arts major with a concentration in public relations for undergrad. And I know it used to be down by the library. I don't even know now if the school for journalism is still down there or where it is. But I was reflecting a little bit on what CJ shared as well, thinking about what are some of the things that I wish I had done while I was there. It's still down there? Great. I'm pretty sure the instructors probably aren't the same. So Camilla, I might need to reach out to you to find out who's down there now. But I think the one thing that I did get a chance to tap into at that time was around internships and really focusing in on spending my summers, not every summer. I had a couple of summers where I did nothing but hang out in Atlanta and get a little small job. But really how to take advantage of the companies that were coming and recruiting to really get just overall exposure to what was going on outside of my little world. And I highly recommend, if you can get an opportunity to take an internship, to definitely do that. And then I say this all the time, be open. I can't say I was super open. I was really focused on, I'm going to graduate and I'm going to get a job in public relations. And to be quite honest, I've never worked in public relations throughout all of that. I say the benefit of my internships, even though I didn't go into public relations, really helped me from a business maturity standpoint and a leadership standpoint. So don't get super caught up in if you don't get the internship that is exactly towards what you want to do. Or even if you take a role outside once you graduate, that's exactly what you think you're going to do for the rest of your life. Because my experience now at 51, 2 degrees, a 25-year-old, a 7-year-old, life happens and things change. And so it's always great to kind of be super flexible. Between my first and second year of business school was probably the first time I'd left the South. I'm from South Carolina. And I didn't think that I would ever want to leave Atlanta. And that's another thing. I don't know if many of you are, natives to Atlanta and all of that. I've tried to encourage my son, who he graduated from Hampton a few years ago, to be open also for the types of opportunities. Stretch yourself. You would be amazed, I think, at how much exposure and experience you'll have that'll continue to build on your skill set throughout your career. So I kind of jumped into my experience at Clark because I'm feeling very reminiscent. See, I pulled out my CAU sweatshirt. I realize it's getting a little faded. It's probably time for me to get another one. But one of the things I'll share with you, so I'm going to get to the whole Wayfair thing, because I know that's what we're here to talk about. So after business school, I went to business school for marketing. I am, as I tell people, a classically trained and educated marketer. I went to Johnson & Johnson and worked in marketing, and then left there, went to IKEA. And I worked for IKEA for 14 years prior to coming to Wayfair. And there's some relevance to this, hopefully you'll find in your journey and my journey and how I got here. So during my time at IKEA, I spent 6.5 years as the chief marketing officer for the US, which is very consistent with what I went to business school for. So I did have a chance to work specifically in my area of expertise. And one of the things I'll tell you is my boss, the CEO, said to me, I think you have the potential to do the operations thing. And so I share this because I think being open to taking next steps and moving into potential also continues to broaden your scope. And so I went into the operations side, and prior to coming to Wayfair, I was the chief operating officer for IKEA for the US. And the thing that kind of helped me transition into the role I'm in now, which is global head of talent development, is not so much about what I went to school for or where I'd spent the bulk of my career, but the thing that gave me the most passion. And I love people. I love developing people. I tell people, I think some of it is because I'm an introvert, so I enjoy pushing other people in kind of out in the front. And the thing that Wayfair has provided me is the opportunity to transition and do something that I love, even though it's not necessarily, what my background is. And I think that's one of the things that I really appreciate about being at Wayfair is that there are just so many different opportunities. If you have the passion for it and you're willing to kind of get in there and learn and contribute, you can do that. I think the other piece of it that also makes this type of transition, I would say makes the transition a little easier, really comes down to the people. And so CJ said it, I mean, Christine has talked about it. The people at Wayfair makes the experience so much more enjoyable. It's the diversity of the people, but it's also the diversity of their experience and all of that. And I remember going through the interview process, and I won't tell you how many people I met with because it was a bit absurd. I was talking to them about 2 different roles. But I remember being like, I could see myself working with every single one of these people. I didn't come across anyone that I was like, I'm not really sure about that. And for an organization with 20,000 people, about 7,000 of them based in Boston, like that's kind of unheard of. And now that I've been here since May, I feel super empowered to do something new. But I also feel super supported by all of the people that I work with and even those that I don't work with closely. And again, I think it comes down to the benefits of the people and the opportunities and the potential in the organization. So that was probably a lot, but I'm open to any questions and happy to share more.
That was great. I'd love for you to share a little bit more about your role and the work that you're doing at Wayfair. And just for some context too, I see a question in the chat about our approach to developing student and employee talent. So maybe that's best answered by you.
Yeah. So it's interesting. I have this unique opportunity to help people figure out what are the tools and resources they need to be successful. And so in my role for talent development, within my scope, we focus on how do we bring people into Wayfair? So the onboarding process, of course, learning about Wayfair in general, but also, very much like CJ, how do we help prepare people in our engineer or our tech organization or our finance organization understand how Wayfair does finance and create different products and things like that and how we manage them. That's one pretty significant part of the role. And another part that's super important is really how do you develop people into managers and leaders? And that also is a large part of the scope. So I say to people all the time, I believe strongly in situational leadership. And I know I can speak from myself. I remember the first management job I got and what my responsibility of managing, 3 people versus my responsibility when I had to manage 100 people. So how do we really help support our employees throughout their entire life cycle at Wayfair? So we have instructor-led trainings, of course, in this digital age, we have e-learnings, things like that. But one of the things that we're moving towards is really around how do we give people development opportunities with experiences that don't necessarily need to be separate from what they're doing, their day-to-day, but how do we give them stretch assignments and connect them with other people within the organization to help them grow and develop? And that could be through mentoring or sponsoring, or just, lack of a better word, volunteering to do other things that get you exposure to your core of what you're doing, but also kind of what you might want to do next. And that's a large part of kind of where I spend a large part of my time focusing on developing those paths.
Yeah, I would definitely say I've been with Wayfair almost 5 months, and I've already had so many stretch opportunities to get involved in different areas and learn the business. And my manager is always thinking about my strengths, my opportunities, and where that can go. And so I think that's definitely part of the culture company-wide.
Yeah.
I'd also add too, so for new hires coming through the campus program, we have an early careers bootcamp program. So when you come to Wayfair, you actually don't even join your team until week 2. And you go right into, we call it ECBC. That's our loving acronym for it. And you get to meet managers from all across the business and just learn sort of like the Wayfair tools, tricks of the trade, just everything you need to be successful. And then also every 6 weeks or so, we have professional development chats with our managers. So identifying opportunities where we have an interest in getting involved, areas where we want to focus. So those are just some of the additional things that we do to help support everyone eventually get, if they want to manage or to grow or to try something new. So really appreciate that about Wayfair. Before we open it up to Q&A, Leontine, any additional advice, last advice you want to share for students?
I mean, I really think you should look into the many different opportunities we have at Wayfair. I wish my first role out of undergrad could have been at a company with so many different opportunities and so many different exposures. So that would probably be it.
That's great advice. All right. Well, so with that, I'll open it up to some Q&A. So if you have questions for me, I plan on our last slide sharing all of our open roles and how you can get in touch with us. But if you have any questions for myself, for CJ, for Leontine, either pop them into the chat, or if you, Camilla, I don't know if the students can come off mute or raise hands. I don't know what their permissions are, but if you wanted to do that as well, please feel free.
Yes, the students are welcomed and encouraged to ask as many questions as they can. This is a great opportunity. I'm loving this presentation.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. What questions do you have for us?
Can I ask one thing? And I don't know if we have permission to do this, but if we could get out of the presentation, I love seeing the faces of.
I would love that too. Yeah, Christina, if you wouldn't mind on sharing, thank you. Awesome. Oh, this is great. So feel free to come off mute if you have a question or type it in the chat. I think I heard someone just.
Yeah, how you doing? This is Osando Harambe from Miss Sykes. I just wanted to say thank you for giving us the awareness of not necessarily having to go into our field. And I think a lot of students, including myself, focus on finding the job exactly in the field, but knowing that there are more opportunities out there than just focusing on your set field. So I thank you for sharing that.
You're welcome. I have a little experience. I went through this with my son when he was at Hampton, and to some degree stressing a bit about like, well, what if I don't get a job specifically doing this? And I shared with him, like, throughout my career, I remember I could tell you a number of people I went to Clark, particularly like in the AUC, who are engineering majors, and not one of them are engineers today. And so, I also like to be quite transparent. I also have a strong faith that everything happens exactly as it's meant to. So you just have to be open to maybe doing things a little differently. Not suggesting that what you've majored in is not of value, and that could be exactly what you do. But sometimes you may find that there are elements of what you've studied that kind of give you a little more energy than others. So how do you go and move towards that and just be open to trying things a little differently?
Absolutely. And from a recruiting perspective, I can share too, I work really closely with our open roles in e-commerce and in talent. And we really don't focus too heavily on what your major is. We really look at your interests, your skills, your background. We look at so much more than that. So keeping an open mind, I think, is really the best advice. And I was a political science major, and here I am as a recruiter. You just never know. So lean into that journey.
Hi, everyone. It's Dr. Patton here. I hope everybody's doing well. I'd like to welcome my students. And Ms. Sykes, I'm not sure if I've met you before, but I'm a double CAU grad as well. So we definitely have some things in common. And of course, Mr. Mitchell is one one of the graduates from Clark Atlanta while I was there. So I got to torture him, you know, so my students, you know, can definitely connect with him in that regard. I do have a question that might be helpful for the students. And that would be like, what does the process look like for getting started? Like, how would they submit? What do they need to submit? Is it an online process? Is it I know you talked a little bit about, you know, you doing a lot of operations virtually at this point, but I think it would be helpful for students to kind of understand what the process would look like to apply to Wayfair. And if they were fortunate enough to get an interview, what some things they, you know, may need to be aware of.
Yeah, so those are great questions. And I'm actually pulling up our student careers page right now so that I can share it in the chat, because that is really the best way to get started. So all of our open opportunities are listed on our student careers page. And we also have some great links about what it's like to work with Wayfair as a student, and just some different articles, you know, just giving you a sense more of like our culture and our teams that we have. I'm going to pop that in the chat right now. So our internship opportunities are for students between their junior and senior year. And then of course we have quite a few entry-level roles. I know with your academic schedule, this might be a little bit tricky, but we also have a co-op program as well. So those are 6-month experiences from January to June and then July to December. So those are opportunities as well. But everything that you need is on that student careers page that I just shared in the chat. And then once you apply, you'll hear from one of our recruiters, and we reply to everyone within a few weeks, like 2 to 3 weeks or so. And then if you come in for an interview, the interview is usually 2 rounds. So there's a first round. For most roles, it varies a little bit. The first round is usually a case interview. And then the second round, the final round, is usually a behavioral interview and a case interview. And so case interviewing we recognize is really new to not just students, but to a lot of people. I know it was my first case interview when I interviewed for Wayfair. So we do on that student careers page have some really good resources, but we encourage students absolutely to reach out if they have questions, if they want to talk through what it might be like. But basically you're given a situation that might be real, it might have happened, or it might be something that could potentially happen. And you're asked to read through and draw some conclusions and potentially make some calculations. But it's not as scary as it sounds, and we work with you on that. And then a behavioral interview. I don't know, have any of you done one of those before? Do you know what they are? So basically focusing on the STAR method of answering a question. So someone might ask you, can you describe a situation when you worked with a difficult customer and how you resolved that? Or if you worked as part of a team to solve a challenge and how you resolved that and what was the result? So really when you're responding to those types of questions, it's the STAR method. So what was the situation? What was the task? What was the action that you took? And what was the result? So if you remember that, that will set you up for success in any interview that you do. Always following through with how you solved that challenge or overcame that challenge. So the first and final round, and then that usually takes just a couple weeks, and then hopefully you hear from Wayfair with an offer. Any more questions on the process? We do have we'll have some information sessions coming up. I know we've talked a lot about the company. If you want to attend one of our more general sessions today, scanning that QR code and filling out that form will be able to stay in touch with you, and you can choose what types of events you're interested in. So engage with us as early as you want. I know the internships I mentioned are for juniors, rising seniors, but we're always excited to talk with students who are interested in Wayfair. So please don't hesitate to reach out. And I'm actually going to put my email in the chat. Any other questions? Any questions for CJ, for Leontine?
Somebody put something in the chat. I think they had a question.
Oh yeah, I see something here. How do you have those difficult conversations when coworkers and make those tough decisions as a manager? Is that related to the interview process, or would you like CJ or Leontine to talk through that?
It was more for CJ or Leontine, like in
Okay.
there, like yeah, working.
I can answer that. That's definitely part
It's
of
a
the
great
day.
question.
Yeah, definitely part of the day to day. I know I can speak for in product. We are consistently at arms with engineers, with UX research, and with UX in general. So again, to give you just like a full, we look at it as a box, and all four of those people have a say so in the direction of where the product particularly goes. When I use the word product, please continue to think that I'm not specifically saying something like an actual phone or something like that, like an actual device. I mean, the actual software that you own, that's what's referred to as product. So I'm, again, responsible for a web page or a mobile application as the product, right? And then let's say I'd say, okay, I want this new feature to come down on this particular product. And I disagree with my design. My design says, hey, I know you don't want that new feature, but we don't want it to look like this, et cetera, et cetera. We can go back and forth. The key is that when it comes down to the product side, is that overwhelmingly the business, we usually have final say so, unless there's a direct engineering roadblock. So for example, engineers like, we just can't do that. What you're looking for, that's just not, capable. Outside of that, when you have those disagreements, the key is really to try to find out why and try to meet people in the middle. And for me personally, the answer can't be just because I don't like it or because I say so. It's some type of subjective answer that deals with you and your opinion, or even me and my opinion, because I'm big on who cares what we think. Let's let the end customer tell us and decide. And what I mean by that is, let's get in front of the people who's going to actually be using the thing. Let's get it. We can roll this thing out to 100 people, 200 people, 2,000 people on a small scale. We can do a survey of the designs that you want to create and do an A/B testing and allow them to tell us what they like or don't like, et cetera, et cetera. So if we have these disagreements, the key is to pull out your emotion. And this is just really in life, right? Pull out your emotion, take a step back, stop making it about who's right and who's wrong, because all of that type of stuff really is irrelevant, because right and wrong is totally subjective to the beholder, right? And then once you get outside of that, you can then start using objective, logical based deciders to make sure you go in a particular direction. Because overwhelmingly, most people typically have the same goal in life all the time. And you find out, they say, hey, designer, I know you really just want this thing to look cool. I want my people to use it. But if we're at odds like this, we need to just find an objective way to meet in the middle. And then once you do, you get this thing in front of 200 people, 300 people, 1,000 people, and we realize that maybe she was right in this design, and maybe I was a little bit right, and maybe not going in that particular direction, et cetera, et cetera. You can learn a lot faster. So it's always better to take a step back, pull your emotions out of it, see what people are really saying, and then try to find an objective way to determine the success, or an objective way to get to your goal, and not making it about your opinions and what you think or your experience, et cetera, et cetera. That's usually where the disagreements particularly happen. But when you have a logic-based, sound argument, and this is across life, whenever it's data-driven, it's hard to fight data when you're making decisions, at least. And that's in my experience. Hopefully that helps.
Leontine, is there anything you wanted to add on that?
I think one of the key things I think you'll find in the workforce is relationships are super important. And so I think there are easier ways to kind of coach and disagree without being disagreeable, particularly if you have an existing relationship with the person. So you know each other, you understand that you all are working towards the same ambition, and like any relationship, and partnership, you're not going to always agree, but being able to listen and to have people feel as if they've been heard in the conversation is always super helpful when you have to have those difficult conversations. Data is absolutely one of the better ways to ensure that you can be objective. But I think very consistent with CJ said, try to remain objective without the emotion and just talk through it. And that's more in a situation where you just don't agree necessarily with a coworker. And then what I would say as a manager, the rules are still the same. It's super important as a manager to have established some level of trust with your employees. And you can leverage that. And it's for me, so I don't know about everyone, but I'll tell you, for me, it goes both ways. I don't tend to like the dynamic that can be created when people start to think of boss and employee. Like I tell my team all the time, I work for you, regardless of a reporting structure. And so if we can have open dialogue about whatever is happening, whether it's something that's on me or on you, and again, we remain objective and not emotional about it, even though sometimes, the topics are emotional, particularly someone's telling you that maybe you didn't deliver to the expectation or the degree that they're looking for. But again, having that trusting relationship can help you sort through that. And again, I think that's super important. So even as a manager, I have to be willing to receive feedback just as quickly as I am willing to deliver feedback. And that, I think, has supported most strong managers in being able to have those types of conversations and to be able to continue to move on and be supportive and have good relationships with the people.
Yeah, and I would even add, when you come to Wayfair, be prepared to ask for your input from day one. Wayfair trusts in your expertise. That's why you were hired to join the company. And that was something that I found to be, it caught me a little bit off guard when I started, and it's true of all levels. So, get ready to come and make an impact from day one, I would say. And then I would also add, when it comes to managing, I have a few recruiters who report into me. Gone are the days of talking about strengths and weaknesses. We really view anything as an opportunity and room for growth. And that's how we address all of our conversations with our team and different challenges that we face just business-wise. And so I think that's a really awesome part of the culture too. It's like, how can we grow further? Where are ways we can get involved? How can we expand our skill set? And that's sort of like the mindset that we use as we approach, working with our team. So we had a question in here about the internships and if they're open to other class years other than juniors. And so unfortunately, our internships are just open to juniors, so rising seniors between junior and senior year. And the reason for that is actually the goal is to leave the internship with an offer to return to Wayfair as an entry-level employee, which is really exciting. Our co-ops are open to underclassmen. So as a sophomore, if you had the time in your schedule and that's something that you wanted to do. And I do want to just share, we have a program that we're hoping to launch this May. So the week of May 16th through the 20th, that will be an early leaders program for sophomores, where you can come to Wayfair for a week, meet with leadership, get to know our ERGs, get to know Boston. So hoping to have that posted very soon. So if you're not a junior yet, hopefully you're thinking about that and you're interested in coming to visit us up in Boston.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you guys? My name is Cheryl Jester George. Hey, everybody on the call. I do just want to call out and say hello, CJ. It's a pleasure meeting you. And Leontine and I, we go way back. So I'm so happy to see you. We'll talk a little bit later about a conversation we had earlier. But I do want to ask you about opportunities. I noticed that you're looking at sophomores and juniors, but for the seniors and MBA candidates, being a first-year student with another year to complete, and those who we are putting out in May that will be graduating, what would those opportunities be for them?
Sure. So we're actually actively recruiting. We have an MBA recruiting team as part of like the greater campus team. And so those would also be on the student career site. And then we also have internships and roles for graduate students. So particularly in analytics, we have like an advanced analytics internship. We have roles for PhDs. So I know I've spoken a lot about like undergraduate roles, but there's quite a wide variety and we work with a lot of graduate students. So those are all actively recruiting right now. And I know they're looking to wrap up the MBA hires in the next month or so. And so if there's anyone on the call who's in that group and wants to apply, make sure you do it soon. But all of the other roles we will leave open until they are filled. And so we're currently hiring for May grads if you are graduating a little bit earlier, for start dates in April. And then there's 4 additional dates over the summer. So you can pick the start date that works for you. But areas, we have business analyst roles, technical analyst roles, e-commerce strategy. So those hires go into our commercial organization, which is the largest that we have at Wayfair, and can do anything from email marketing to being on the phone all day with our suppliers globally. So such a cool wide variety of opportunity. And then we have, as I mentioned, a lot of data roles, software engineering. There's just so much opportunity. I know Leontine and CJ both touched on this, so much opportunity with Wayfair. Cheryl, does that answer your question? Was that helpful?
Thank you, Kristen. That was very helpful. I was actually out on the site looking at things, and I did notice the co-op and the internship and the full-time employment. And I clicked on a button that says, well, never mind, but it just didn't work for me. So I'm gonna have to go back. But I just wanted to make sure that I was aware, and the students were aware, that didn't fit some of the categories that you had mentioned, that there are still opportunities to work at Wayfair. And knowing Leontine and CJ's presentation, it seems like a great place to be at this time. So I appreciate that. Thank you so much.
Great. And if you see any issues, any links that aren't working, feel free to shoot me an email too, and I can address that. It could just be like a tech issue or something like that. So definitely just let me know.
Okay.
But I would say, like, Leontine and CJ, I think, shared some great experiences about working at Wayfair. And as I shared, I've been with the company for 5 months, but in my past life, I was an employer relations manager at a college working with all of the employers who came to campus and wanted to hire our students. And I was that much more selective about who I was going to make the move for. And I've just been so impressed by the onboarding process here at Wayfair and how helpful people are and how willing they are to chat, no matter how senior, what level they're at. So just sharing that as someone who's new, that I have really appreciated that myself.
Thank you so much.
Sure. Any other questions? Christina, if you're able to pull up our open roles and sort of the next step slides, maybe that would be helpful. Thank you. Okay, so I know that we have spoken quite a bit about our open roles. And so these are some of, particularly for students, graduate, undergraduate, who are in business programs. And I apologize, I just saw a typo on that slide. So please disregard that. But this is just a sample of the roles that would be appropriate for business students. Again, we don't focus on major at all. Coming into the e-commerce space where I recruit, we have art history majors who've been super successful. It's really all about you and not being afraid of data and being to work really well with others. And we can work with you from there. I appreciate that so much, sort of the diversity of experience that we have at Wayfair. The link to the student careers page is at the bottom. I also shared it in the chat. I shared my email and CJ's as well. So please feel free to reach out. And Christina, if you wanted to go to the next slide, please. So this is just a general overview of how you can apply and just like some frequently asked questions. All of the campus roles should be, I should note that all of our campus roles are located in Boston. And at the moment, down the road, that could absolutely change as we open up some additional technical centers all over the country, but at the moment they're in Boston. So just wanted to throw that out there as well. Any last minute questions? And again, if you could just scan the code and sign in, and then we can keep in touch, that would be great. And even if you're not a junior or senior, we will still reach out and we will still keep in touch. All right, well, if there aren't any questions, thank you all so much for your great conversation. Thank you so much to our guests, Leontine and CJ, and the wonderful faculty for encouraging your students to talk about careers and career development. We're so happy to be here today. Please keep in touch. That was great. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.